Okay, so we're going for this exercise number 3, which is we would like to read the first name, middle name and last name and display the last name and first name on the screen. It would be easy if there was not this second sentence, because I just can read with next, just reading one word, and then I will just do whatever I want. But this question forces you to use something that is not making it easy. By saying I'm easy, I'm not sure that everybody got it by why it was easy. Let me just do the easy way without doing this kind of next line. So week 3, exercise 3. Okay, so again the scanner. I'm going to call it input just for change, because I don't want you to think it's always has to be KB. Sorry? Import. Yes, well look, when I'm using control space, did you notice the import was added? Let me just cancel this for you. You see? There was no import right now, it just complained about the import. If I type new scanner and then control space, I'm selecting scanner java.util, the import just got added. NetBeans helps you, it finds that this class is in that package and it just imports it automatically for you. However, you need to know that it is required. So that's why I'm not a big fan of showing it all the shortcuts quickly, but you're going to get it. But just know that this is important to know. That the import is necessary. Now system.in, and this is just the way it should be. And now I'd like to read the first name, middle name, and last name. So I need 3 variables, like first name, middle name, and last name. So that was the easy way if I wasn't asking you to read the whole line. So now I'm not reading the whole line, but let's imagine I did not ask you that. So this is something that you could have done. I'm going to, for example, say something, enter, sorry, I need this out, and then enter your full name. I'm going to be a little bit more, please enter your full name, and I'm going to use print without that, and then first name is going to be input dot next. Remember the difference between next and next line, right? Next reads one word, next line reads the whole line. So now when I'm doing something like this, if I'm adding like spaces, first word, second word, third word, these are going to be put into these 3 variables, and then I'm going to be able to display just the first name. What was mentioned is that we'd like to display only the last name and first name on the screen. So I will just, for example, display the last name and then put a space between it and the first name, which means I just removed the middle name. I did not display it. I just read it, but it did not display it. Now let's just try this for fun. Let's just run it. And please enter your first name, your full name. Okay, this is Muhammad. Okay, let me talk more about myself. But this is going to be a bit complicated. But let's say I have Muhammad Yasin is my first name. Okay, so my father's name is Muhammad, but this is how they call me. But I prefer Muhammad for obvious reasons. But so this is the name I entered. Now what I'd like to have is to keep Muhammad and Al-Amrani. The Yasin is going to go, but because I did this, now I entered 3 words because they are separated with spaces. Now this one is going to go for the first one, the second one for the second, and the third for the third. Let me just keep this showing all the time. So when I just press enter now, I'm going to just put these variables are going to be filled with the correct data in the same sequence they're entered, and then I'm going to display Al-Amrani space and Muhammad. Here we go. So that was easy because we did not read the second part of the exercise. But the second part of the exercise, and actually nobody told you not to use this part, just to get started and to warm up to the exercise. So you can and this is the skill that you will have to learn. If you would like to solve a big problem, you have to learn how to cut that big problem into smaller pieces so you can solve the pieces that are easy to solve, and then you group them together to have like a comprehensive solution. So you have to be able to always cut into, the big problem. So I did not solve the problem completely, but partly. I'm almost there. What I need to do now is to comply with this requirement. This requirement says you must use next line to read the full name, and then use substring and index of in order to display only the last name and the first name in that order. And there's a third sentence that says make sure to display the first name and last name with all capital letters. Well, let's do this step by step. We'll do this first and then we go for the last one. Now I must use next line, which means this thing doesn't work anymore, because next line is going to read the whole line, and this whole thing is going to go into the first name. That's not what I want exactly. So what I would like to be doing, probably I just change this now. I'm just going to say full name or name. So this is my full name, and I don't need these anymore, and I have to do maybe to find a way. Let's just maybe find a way to split them by putting them into some variables. These are the two variables that I need to store the first name and last name. So at the end I'm going to be displaying these things here, and in between I need to do some couple of things. Now I need to extract the first name, which is quite easy. If I have a text, I just need to find the space and put it there in the substring from 0 to the position of that space. You remember the substring, right? Does. So let's just try that. The first name, I'm going to put inside of it the full name dot substring, and what I'm just going to put the values myself, because I know the values for this special case, and then we can generalize it to any case later on. For this special case, it should be 0 and 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Because when I'm making 7, the 7 is not included. So that suits me, because I don't want to have the space. I just would like to have just the name. Now if I do something like this, of course I still have a problem with the last name, because it tells me last name has never been initialized, and I'm asking to look what's inside and display it. So what I'm going to do, just to solve this, I'm just going to do it this way. What's happening today? So I need to check this again. So I just put this empty thing just to make it run. I'm not going to display, this is going to display nothing, but so last name is going to be empty. I'm just going to display space or whatever. I just can put, for example, test, just to see what I put myself. Now my purpose here is just to extract the first name. I'm not solving the whole thing, just the first name, being able to extract it from this full name. And let's make sure that it works. So that's what you should be doing. When you try to solve a big problem and then you cut it into a smaller piece, just go for the smaller piece and test it, make sure it works, and then go for make it bigger again. Now this is just should have, okay, I'm just going to type again, and this time I'm going to memorize this thing with the Control-C and press enter. Now you see, good, I was able to, because of this, to make it work with first name. So I was able to get the first name. But now the thing is, what if somebody else enters some other name? I'm not controlling what the user inputs. You can give any name. And what if he enters a name that has more than like 7, whatever, or something like this, has more than 7, so the 7 is not going to be enough. So if I put something like this, well, it just kept up to before 7, which is not what I want. I want to look for the space. So do I know how to ask to look for the space? Yes. Index of is going to give me the space. So instead of this to be always 7, I want it to be the position of the space. Okay, I'm going to just make it easier by position. of, or space position, let me call it like this way, space position. And then in that space position, I'm going to go for the full name dot index of the space. Now this is going to give me the position of the space and save it into this variable, and that variable I'm going to be the position that I would like to stop at. Now in this case, I'm going to run it again with the text that I already have and make sure it works, but then make it another test with some very long name, and it's able to get the whole thing, as you can see. Well, that's not a very big name to easy to memorize, but I think you got it. So it's working. Now the point, I got the first name. How can I get the last name? My problem is when I use index of, and you have seen it in the slides, if I have the same again, it only gives me the first one. So my problem now, I have two. So every time I ask for index of a space, it is always going to give me this one. Is there a way to do that? Sorry? Well, that's a good point. There's a last index of, but imagine if you know that, that will be nice. So if you know that there's something called last index, that will be very good, because instead of, now that I have the first name, instead of getting the, yeah, the last index of, so for example, let me just declare another variable just for fun. Last space, I'm going to call it last space position. So last space position is going to give me the position of the last space by doing full name dot last index of, and then I put a space. Now this is the position of the last space, which is going to give me this, which means if I would like to have the last name is going to be, give me the full name dot substring, starting from where? What's the start position? Last space plus 1. So the last space position plus 1. Why plus 1? Because the last space position is going to give me the position of the space, so it's just going to start from the space. I would like to start from the first letter of the last name, which is, this is the position of the space, plus 1, this is the position of the first name, of the last name, sorry. So this here is going to give me the position of the first letter of the last name.
But that's mean teacher 1 is K. Positions K.
Yes, of this one, this K over here. So now, do I need to mention where do we stop?
No.
No, because we want to have the whole thing until the end. Yes.
What if someone puts dot in the end of his name?
Okay, the dot is going to be included. Yes. If somebody puts the dot, it's going to be included. But let's not deal with those special cases, because we just assume that the full name is going to be without any special cases. But there's an interesting part of that, is that it's always going to give us the position of this space, the last space, which is this one, and I didn't want to get this one. Now let's just try it again with probably my name here. And then you're going to see that it's giving me the first name, the last name, and then a space that I added myself. This is this one. And then I have the first name. Alright? But it would be nice. But I'm just mentioning the question, use only substring and index of. I did not mention last index of. So how to solve that?
Plus 1, then you put the first name.
What do you mean?
To find the second space.
Without the last index of?
Yeah, without
Just with index of. Okay?
Yeah.
What should I do?
After the space that you put. Yeah, after here. Plus 1, I wasn't mistaken.
Plus 1?
Yeah, then the space position.
+1 plus space position. That's what you mean?
Yeah. Some. No, that's. Or I think.
Okay, hold on. Let's just see something. Look, when we have index of, okay, let's try to see index of. There are many versions of index of, you see? Index of, there's one that takes just a text. There's another one that takes an int, which is a char. You see, ch stands for char. Remember the story behind the char? It's like a special number. Well, that's the same history. You can put a char, it's going to be converted like what's the position of that char. And then you can put a string, and from where to start looking at it. And this is what you saw probably on the internet or somewhere. You can mention, I'm looking for space, but starting from the space, the previous space +1. So, but you need to know how it works. So this is like the space index of, I'm looking for a space, but then I want to start from this, not the space position, but the position +1. So which means this is starting from position from +1. Look from here at the first space that you find, and this is something that is going to make it work. So that's another version. Let me, you know what? Let me just keep track of these versions. I'm just going to put them into some last index of. This one is going to work, and there's this one with the index of, but takes the space, and then we start looking from the position +1, the previous space position +1, and this is going to give me the last space position. And this last space position, I'm using it to extract the last name, which is, because I found the last space position from 1, I add 1, and then from there until the end, I get the last name. I'm not sure if you're still following. Are you? Where are you lost? Which part is confusing? Last part, this one. No, I'm sure that's not this one. You're just saying yes without even. This line is not. You don't have any problems with this line. This line, you do have a problem with this one. Okay, how about this line? Because this line depends on this one. So this one. Oh, but actually probably the problem is coming from here. And even before this one here is a problem. I think that's the one that's the problem, right?
From the beginning of the second statement about.
But this part, is it clear? This part, what this part is doing? What this part is doing? Find the first space. That's okay, but we can be more precise.
Take the first name with the.
And stop in the first
No, I'm not saving the first name in that variable. I'm just this line 26. You were saying? See the first space. So I'm seeing the first space. I'm not seeing the first space.
You're gonna see the first space. Take the number of the number of
The index, yeah.
the box, then put it in the space position.
In the variable called space position. Space position is just a variable. We all agree. It's just like A, B, C, whatever. Okay. I just give it a name that is meaningful, so we know what we're doing. Now this thing here, index of, it gives you the position of a character. Now index of, I'm giving it a space, which means it gives me the position of the space. What is the position of the space? The result of this is what?
A number.
A number. What is that number for this special case? You have to count. 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So this is 7. So space position contains 7. And now I use this 7 here. I'm using give me from 0, from here, until before 7, this text that is coming from full name. So this is the full name. From 0 to 7, so from 0 to before 7 is going to be this thing. Okay, what am I doing with this? So this is exactly this. What am I doing with this thing? I'm going to put it inside a variable called first name. So this now is inside first name. Do we all agree on this now?
Yeah.
Because if you agree on this one, the rest is going to be easy. Now we're going to be doing the same thing. We need to, before getting this last name, we need to find the position of the first letter of the last name. How can we do that? If we use index of space, like we used to do, this is going to give me always 7. That's not what I want. Now what I want is this one, the second space. So there are different ways how to find this second space. One of them is to use last index of. Last index of, how it works, instead of starting from the beginning and finding the space that you're looking for, it starts from the end and it looks for the space. Once it's find it, it tells you, oh, this is the position of your space. So last index of, much easy. It will tell you, well, this is the position. What's position? Well, I have to count 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. So this is going to be 15. So this 15, I'm saving it in last position of last space position. And then I'm using this. Let me just comment this one and uncomment this one. This is what we were using. Now, what I'm doing now, should I be using this last position just like this with the substring? If I do that, it will just work, but it's just going to give me a space here that I don't need. If I do this, it's going to give me a space that I don't need. Let me show it to you. If I run this thing and then I type this full name, you see the space here now? This is coming because I'm just starting from the space, the last index of the space. But I don't want to start from a space. I don't like to start from one after the space. So that's why I'm doing this +1. Now this +1, what it does, this is the, I don't know what it was, 16, whatever. Now it's going to be 17 if it was 16. So we found the space. Now the letter after the space is just you keep adding 1 to the position of that, of the space, and then you find the first letter after the space. This first letter now is going to be the starting of my substring. So I'm going to start from here. Where do I stop? Because I'm giving one number, it's just not going to stop. It's going to take until the end of the text. So, which means this is going to take everything. So this is going to be saving from the last position of the space +1 until the end. What am I doing with this? Put it into the last name and then I'll display it. Alright? So everything is about finding the position of this last space. Once I find it, I can just work with it. The first space was a problem, but it was easy to solve by using something like index of, just a space, and we're able now to make it work with any name. Now if I run it again with another name, which is okay, or oh, that's a bit too much. No, this is the last name and this is the first name, first word, second, last word. So it works regardless of where is the position of that space, because I don't put a number, I just put a formula how to find that number. The formula here is just look for a space and give me its number. Okay? So is it much better now? Do you want to see a third version? I'll just stick with this one, these two, that's enough. There's a third version without using this index of and with the space starting from. But let me just talk about this one. What's the difference between this one, the first one, and the second version? The second version is like the same thing as last index of. However, what it does, it just start looking from somewhere. This would be, for example, this is exactly similar at this, you see? Now the index of starts working like this. Look, starting from the first position, look for a space. Now this or this is exactly the same. But the advantage of being able to tell from where we start is that I can tell it, okay, you know what? You see there's a space here. Just move to the next letter from the space, and starting from here, find this, and then give me the index of the first space that you find. So this is going to give you the index of this first space. So this is why these two are doing exactly the same thing. These two lines are doing exactly the same thing, but in two different ways.
But if we have first names, like first name, the father name, the
If you have four components in the name, this one is much better. Yeah, the last index of is going to find the last one. But this is just, as you said, this is assuming that I have only two spaces. If I have more, well, then I have to deal with it separately. But that's something that I would like to keep you with. So if you're fine with it right now, we can move on. If you still have some questions, don't be shy to bring them up. Still what?
It's easy to understand last index of.
Last index of?
Yeah, I think it's easy.
This one.
Yeah. Which means the second space don't include. That's it.
No, it means start looking from a space from the back. So when you look for a space, this index of what it does, it starts from the 0 and then it compares. Is this a space? No. Okay, keep going. This is space? No. Give this space until it finds. Is this a space? Yes. Okay, what's the position of that? Give it to me. That's how index works. Index of works.
Forward space. That's it.
No, I'm talking about index of, this index of. How it works, it starts from the beginning and looking for a space.
And stop.
Yes.
That includes space.
When it finds one, it just gives me its position. It stops.
Okay.
And then the last position, this one, it just does the same thing but backwards. It starts from here and it looks, is this a space? No. Is this a space? No. Is this a space? Is this a space? Yes. Okay, what's the position of this space? So the last index of starts backwards. The index of starts from the beginning. So that's the only difference between the two.
Line number 30.
Oh, today is my best day. Okay, so line 30 you said, this one. Somebody said line 30 and then he went on his phone when I was on mine.
The first space.
The first what?
The space. The index of. Space.
This one? Yes. Okay, so the difference between these two is that you remember this one, what it does, it starts from the first one and then keep looking for a space until it finds it. So it starts from the 0, right?
Yeah.
So this is like this. Now, what if I don't want to start from 0? I want to start from here, for example, or more interestingly, from here. Now this thing, what it does, we know the position of the first space. We know the position of the first space, don't we? So if I instead start from the space position, what is going to happen, starting from here until the end, try to find the first space. It's going to find it right away. That's the position that we just gave. You got it? So that's why we don't want to start from space position. We want like to start from the one next to the space position. Oh man, that's amazing. We don't want to start from this space position, because if we do, it's just going to give me the same value as this space position. Where's the first space? Well, this is the one, the position that you started looking at. But when I put this +1, now it starts looking at a different place. Which place is that? From this space +1 here. So what it's going to do, it's going to do the same work that this one was doing, but instead of starting from 0, it will start from the first letter of the middle name. And it was going to keep looking until it finds a space. When it does, it's going to give me the space, which is going to be the same as the last space that was to find. So this thing here behaves like this, but with the small difference that this one starts from the beginning and this one starts from a number that you give it to it, which position you want to start looking for the space from. That's the only difference. The last index of is just looking for space again, but backwards. That's the difference between the three. So we have this index of that takes only a char. We have this last index that takes only a char, but we have another index of that takes a char and a position and a number. And that tells you that this one that is highlighted right now, it just takes the same work that this one does, but starting not from 0 but from a specific position that I mentioned. Yes?
What about the third version?
Yes, the third version that I wanted to show you, that if you don't know this, you did not know that this exists and I can put index of or something, there's a way to, what I'd like to do, since I have this, I just would like to get rid of the first name and also the space, so I can just store this as my full name. I'm going to change the full name to be this, so I can use the same thing again like I did before. So for example, the other version would be to do something like this: full name is equal to full name substring space position plus 1 until the end. So what this thing will do, space position plus 1, that's this, that's space position, that's space position plus 1.
Yeah.
From here until the end, take this and put it in full name. So now full name contains only the middle name and last name. Then the last space position will become the same thing as this. A lot of headaches right now, right? Enjoying it fully. To be able to do this, you have to follow your variables. Let me show you a nice way to follow your variables. You see this, we've always been running with this button over here. There's another button here that if you run with it, it's going to work a little bit differently. But it needs something for it to work. And you can see it shows me variables. Oh, that's nice. And I have the input that I can put the input. No, that's not what I want. Let's just select the other one. Yes. Now it just did this, but what's the difference between that one and the other one? Well, let me show it to you. The difference is I can, well, I don't need this anymore. I can just put my mouse over a line and I click on that line number and something is going to happen. This is now called a breakpoint. A breakpoint is a place in the code that will make the computer stop at it and wait for me to give it a go before continuing to the next step. And this only works if you run with this button. If you run with this, this is going to be discarded. It's not going to be taken into consideration. It will never stop. But if you run it with this now, something nice is going to happen. You see, this is the output is waiting for me because I put it immediately after the input. Now I type whatever I need to type and press enter and see what happens. It just stopped. It stopped and it gave me some kind of new buttons to play with, and what's more important, it gives me the variables and what's inside of them. Now I have full name, that's the variable that I declared, and I'm about to declare a new variable called space position. You see now the full name, if I put my mouse over it, it will tell me it's a string and this is what's inside. So now if I execute this line, if I want to execute this line, you see there's something called here step over, and you can use F8 to use that thing. But let's click on this button and see what happens. So this thing is going to now execute this line and wait for me to execute the other one. But by executing this line, something happens in the variables. I have a new variable called space position. It's an int, and what's inside of it? It's space. It's the space position 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So it gives me this position here. Now I'm about to execute this line. This line is going to put the substring of this. And check what's interesting about this thing is that if I select this thing, it is going to tell me what's the result of this full name substring 0 until space position. So this thing, the result of that is a text, and this is the result of that text. What am I doing with this Muhammad? I'm going to put it inside first name, and let's have a look at it. First name is a text and it has Muhammad. Now let's have a look at this. What is it doing? Notice that now I have space position, which is 7 plus 1 means 8. So which means I'm starting from 8 until the end, and this is going to be, as you can see, Yasin and Amrani. Do you see it? Right there. So this is the result of that substring. So it's going to give me Yasin and Amrani. Everybody understands why?
Yes.
Because I'm starting from the space plus 1, which means the y, and from the y give me the rest of this thing. So what am I doing with this Yasin and Al-Amrani? I'm going to save it inside full name. So now my full name will change from Muhammad Yasin Al-Amrani to, and here it goes. So that line, this is what it did. It just changed the full name to take out the first name. Did I lose some information? Well, yes, in the full name, but it's still available in the first name. I stored it somewhere. It's here. So the first name is still have that information. That's not a big deal. Now the next step is this thing. Index of a space inside this is going to give you, there's only one of them, so it is going to give you this one. So if I run this, it's going to give me some kind of a number. What number is this? I don't want to count, so I'm just going to, this is 7 again, because it turns out that Yasin has the same size of Muhammad. Okay, I did not know that. So now what I'm going to do, again, last position of that space, this 7 here, I'm going to add 1 to it and request that the full name with this Yasin Al-Amrani now, and starting from the 7 plus 1 from 8, give me the rest of the text. So this is going to give me Al-Amrani, as you see. And what am I doing with this? I'm going to save it into the last name, and that's the last name. And this is how you can follow your variables, and each one what's happening to it. And you can follow your program. You can see what was the value of this variable, what was inside, and you can only do that if you run with this debug project.
So it's for debugging.
Yes, for trying to find your problem, or trying to understand sometimes, to understand also. So once you're done, you don't want to continue anymore. Imagine I have many lines. So khalas, I'm done investigating. I just would like to continue. Just click on this button, just to continue as usual. So that's something to use to understand. But I think now you have a better idea how this worked, right?
Yeah.
Did we finish everything? Well, except this last one here. How can I convert the first name and last name all to be capital letters? A very simple thing is just 2 uppercase. And I'm going to add this to the last name and to the first name. So now, if I copy again and run, this is going to use to convert everything to capital letters. So just add this 2 uppercase to that, and that's done. What a nice exercise. But I'm sure that you learned some interesting things, especially by looking at the details. So if you just look at the overall picture, it's going to be hard to follow, but you have to look at step by step to be able to get them right. So I'm just going to uncomment this one and leave you with the much easier one, this thing here. So this one is, this is like, just to make it clear, this is, I don't know, let's make it like, this is version 2. and this thing, the whole thing is version 3, because version 3 has 2 lines. These two has to be version 3. Okay, enjoyable? You still want to learn how to program in Java? Okay, so that's exercise number 3.